Listen closely. This moment is not an accident. You did not stumble onto this message by chance, and you are not hearing these words simply because you were scrolling, searching, or passing time. Something far deeper is happening right now. Out of all the voices you could have heard today, out of all the messages competing for your attention, this is the one that reached you. And that alone should make you pause. Because when God speaks, He does not shout without purpose, and He does not interrupt a life unless that interruption is necessary. You may think this is just another motivational speech, just another warning like the ones you have heard before. But deep down, something in you knows this feels different. There is a weight to it, a pull you cannot explain. That pull is not fear, and it is not emotion, it is recognition. Your spirit recognizes the voice calling it back. God is not speaking to you tomorrow, and He is not promising to speak later when things calm down, or when life becomes easier. He is speaking now, in this very moment, because now is the moment that still belongs to you. Time has been moving in a way you cannot control. Days blur together, weeks disappear, and before you realize it, seasons of your life have passed without permission. And yet, in the middle of all that motion, God stopped you here, not to scare you, but to awaken you, not to condemn you, but to warn you while warning is still mercy. Because there is a difference between God being silent and God giving you one last nudge before silence arrives. You have felt it already. That quiet sense that something needs to change, that inner voice that keeps asking how much longer. You keep telling yourself you will fix things later, you will pray more later, you will turn back later, but later is a promise that time does not make. God is calling you now because now is the only moment that guarantees His reach, and your response can still meet. Think about how many times you ignored small nudges before, a feeling you pushed away, a conviction you silenced, a warning you replaced with distraction. God was there then, patient, waiting, allowing you to choose. But patience does not mean permission to delay forever. Even mercy has a moment when it demands a decision. And this is that moment for you. If you are honest with yourself, you know this message found you at a crossroads. Maybe no one else can see it, but you feel it. Something is about to shift, either toward restoration or toward loss. God's voice comes before the shift, not after. He speaks before the door closes, not when it is already locked. That is why this message matters so much. It is not here to entertain you. It is here to confront you with truth wrapped in love. God is not asking for perfection. He is asking for attention. He is asking you to stop running, stop postponing, stop pretending there will always be more time. Because the greatest deception is not sin, it is delay. Delay convinces you that urgency can wait, that obedience can be scheduled, that surrender can be postponed. But heaven does not operate on someday. Heaven moves on now. This message is proof that God still wants you, that He has not given up, that He is still reaching into your chaos, your confusion, your distractions, and saying your name, not angrily, not harshly, but firmly enough that you cannot say you were never warned. You are being called not because you are lost beyond hope, but because you are close enough to turn back. So, before these words fade, before the noise of life rushes back in, before you convince yourself this was meant for someone else, hear this clearly. If God took the time to reach you right now, then time itself is running out on delay. And now that you recognize this moment is not accidental, there is something even heavier you must confront, because awareness alone is not enough. The danger is not that you don't know what to do. The danger is that you keep telling yourself you will do it later. That one word has quietly shaped so many of your decisions. Later. Later when life slows down. Later when you feel stronger. Later when the timing feels right. But while you've been waiting for later, time has never waited for you. There is a silent urgency in the way life has been moving around you. Doors you thought would stay open forever have already begun to close. Opportunities you assumed would always return have quietly passed without announcing their exit, and still you delay. Not because you don't care, but because delay feels safer than change. Delay allows you to stay comfortable while convincing yourself you're still in control. But the truth is, every time you postpone obedience, time records it as a loss. You keep thinking you have more time than you actually do. That is how delay deceives you. It whispers that tomorrow will be easier, that you'll be more ready then, that God will understand if you wait. But understanding is not the same as approval. God understands your fear, your weakness, your hesitation, but He also sees the cost of your delay. He sees what procrastination is slowly stealing from your future while you try to protect your present. Think about how many moments you told yourself you'd come back to, how many prayers you meant to pray, how many changes you intended to make. They didn't disappear all at once. They faded gradually, drowned out by routine, distractions, and excuses that felt reasonable at the time. Delay doesn't announce destruction. It disguises it as patience. And by the time you notice what's gone, time has already moved on without asking for permission. God has been calling you forward, but delay keeps pulling you backward. Not violently, gently, soft enough that you barely notice the resistance. Delay never feels like rebellion, it feels like caution. But caution can become disobedience when it refuses to move. And what you call being careful, heaven may see as being stuck. There are consequences not just for what you do wrong, but for what you refuse to do at all. For prayers left unspoken, for forgiveness withheld, for steps of faith postponed until fear feels smaller. Time doesn't punish you, it simply continues. And as it continues, the window to act narrows little by little, quietly, without warning. You've told yourself that if it were truly urgent, you'd feel more pressure. But pressure isn't always loud. Sometimes urgency comes as a calm, persistent knowing that you keep ignoring. That feeling that won't leave you alone. That thought that turns when everything goes quiet. That sense that you're meant for more, yet you're standing still while life moves forward without you. God's voice has not been rushed, but it has been consistent. He has spoken before and you postponed. He spoke again and you hesitated. Each time you assumed there would be another chance. And maybe there is, but maybe that chance is now. Because time doesn't announce its final offer. It simply stops offering. Delay has already cost you enough. It has stole. And peace, clarity, and momentum. It has kept you preparing for a future that requires action, not intention. You don't need more motivation. You need movement. You don't need another sign. You need obedience, because every moment you delay, time continues to move, and the distance between who you are and who you're called to be grows wider. And even now, as you hear these words, there is a decision forming inside you. You can tell yourself this will be the day you finally act, or you can let it become another moment you meant to come back to. Time will not wait for you to decide when it's convenient. It only waits for your response right now. And if you're honest, the reason these words are hitting so deeply is because your heart already knows something isn't right. You felt it long before this message ever reached you. In quiet moments, when distractions fade and the noise settles, there's a heaviness you can't explain. A restlessness that doesn't go away no matter how busy you stay. You try to label it as stress, exhaustion, or pressure from life, but deep down you know it's more than that. It's not your mind that's unsettled, it's your spirit. You can smile in front of people and still feel empty inside. You can be surrounded by noise and still feel alone. You can keep moving, achieving, surviving, and yet feel like something essential is missing. That feeling isn't weakness, it's awareness. It's the part of you that recognizes misalignment. When your life drifts away from what God designed it to be, your heart feels it before your logic ever catches up. You've tried to silence that feeling. You've distracted yourself, you've told yourself it will pass if you just stay busy enough, but it keeps returning, stronger each time, because unresolved truth doesn't disappear, it waits. And the longer it waits, the heavier it becomes. That's why your heart feels tired in a way rest can't fix. That's why joy feels distant even on good days. That's why peace seems temporary instead of steady. God placed that sensitivity inside you on purpose. Your heart was never meant to be numb. When something is wrong, it reacts. When something is off course, it signals you. But instead of listening, you've been questioning it. You've been telling yourself you're overthinking, that you're being dramatic, that others have it worse. But pain doesn't need comparison to be real, and warning signs don't disappear just because you ignore them. The most dangerous thing isn't feeling lost, it's getting used to it. When unrest becomes normal, you stop asking why you feel the way you do. You adjust to the discomfort instead of addressing the cause. And that's where many people stay stuck. Not because God stopped speaking, but because they stopped listening to what their heart was trying to tell them. There were moments when conviction brushed against your soul, when something told you to stop, to turn around, to change direction. You felt it clearly. But conviction delayed turns into confusion. The longer you resist it, the quieter it seems. Not because it's gone, but because your heart has grown tired of being ignored. And silence after warning is never peace. It's distance. That ache you feel is not meant to shame you, it's meant to guide you. It's the internal alarm that goes off when you're drifting away from truth, from purpose, from God Himself. You weren't created to live disconnected, numb, or constantly unsettled. And the reason your heart won't let you settle into that state is because heaven hasn't given up on you yet. Your heart remembers what your life was meant to be like. It remembers peace without pretending, joy without escape, purpose without pressure. That memory creates longing, and longing creates discomfort when you settle for less. So when your heart feels heavy, it's not condemning you, it's calling you back. You may be afraid to face what's really wrong because you know it will require change. Change feels overwhelming, change feels risky, but staying where you are is slowly costing you more than change ever could. God doesn't expose discomfort to punish you. He exposes it to heal you. He allows you to feel the weight so you'll finally stop carrying it alone. Even now, as these words unfold, your heart is responding. That tightening in your chest, that quiet seriousness, that sudden stillness, it's not coincidence, it's recognition. Your heart knows this message isn't just information, it's intervention. And the longer you ignore what your heart is telling you, the louder the consequences become. You don't need to understand everything you're feeling to know it matters. You just need to stop dismissing it. Because that unrest is not your enemy, it's your warning. And it's telling you something your soul has known all along. And because your heart has been warning you, this is where the message becomes impossible to soften. What you are hearing now is not just encouragement, and it is not just another reminder meant to make you feel better for a moment. This is a wake-up call, not the kind that gently nudges you from sleep, but the kind that shakes you because danger is closer than you realize. God does not warn endlessly, He warns intentionally. And the fact that this warning still reaches you means mercy is still active, but mercy is asking for a response. There comes a moment when warnings stop being repetitive and start becoming final, not because God loses patience, but because time reaches a boundary. Every warning you've received before this one was an invitation, an opportunity to turn before turning became harder. An opening to listen before listening required loss. And now those warnings have narrowed into this moment, carrying more weight because there may not be many left after it. You might feel fear rising as you hear this, but understand this clearly. Fear is not the purpose. Love is. A loving God warns before consequences arrive. He doesn't wait until everything collapses to say, "I tried." He speaks while there is still something left to save. But love also tells the truth without dilution. And the truth is this: ignoring warnings does not make them expire. It makes the outcome unavoidable. Look back honestly. How many times were you spared when you didn't even realize it? How many moments should have ended worse than they did? That wasn't luck. That was mercy intervening quietly, repeatedly, protecting you while you delayed change. But mercy is not permission to remain unchanged forever. It is space. Space to choose differently while you still can. This is where many people misunderstand God. They assume that because nothing terrible happened yet, nothing will. They mistake delay for approval. But silence after warning is not safety. It's the sound of consequences approaching without announcement. God would rather disturb your comfort now than allow destruction to surprise you later. You may feel exposed right now, like these words are pressing against parts of your life you've tried to keep hidden, even from yourself. That discomfort isn't condemnation, it's clarity. When God gives a final warning, He does it with precision. He touches the exact area you've avoided, the habit you've excused, the direction you know is wrong but hoped would somehow work out anyway. And here is the part you must not ignore. Warnings are not sent to be analyzed. They are sent to be obeyed. You don't need more understanding. You need surrender. You don't need more time to think. You need courage to act, because every warning delayed becomes a lesson learned the hard way. God is not threatening you. He is pleading with you, not loudly, not angrily, but firmly enough that you cannot say you were never told. He is standing between you and a future you are not prepared to face, saying, "Stop here. Turn now. Don't take another step in this direction." That is not cruelty. That is protection. And even now, you are being given a choice, not a dramatic one, not one that requires an announcement, just a quiet decision in your heart. Will you finally listen? Or will you once again convince yourself this warning can wait? Heaven is watching not what you feel, but what you do after this moment passes. This is not meant to leave you hopeless. It is meant to leave you awake. Because once you are awake, you are responsible. Responsible to respond. Responsible to move. Responsible to stop pretending you didn't know. God has brought you to the edge, not to push you over, but to stop you from falling further. And even after all of this, after the warnings, the urgency, the stirring in your heart, there is still something extraordinary being offered to you, not condemnation, not rejection, not the door slamming shut. What is being extended right now is mercy in its most powerful form, the chance to turn back while turning back can still change everything. This is where hope quietly enters, not as a feeling, but as an opportunity. You may think you've gone too far, waited too long, failed too many times for repentance to matter anymore. That lie has kept more people trapped than any mistake ever could. Repentance is not about proving you're worthy. It's about admitting you need help. And God responds to honesty faster than He responds to perfection. One sincere moment can undo years of damage, not because time reverses, but because dire. Shion changes. Repentance doesn't mean you suddenly have all the answers. It means you stop running from the truth you already know. It means you stop defending what's breaking you. It means you finally say what your heart has been afraid to admit, that you can fix this on your own, and pretending otherwise has only made it worse. That admission is not weakness. It's the doorway to restoration. God is not asking you to relive every mistake or punish yourself for every failure. He's asking you to release what you've been carrying. Guilt was never meant to be a permanent home. Conviction points forward. Shame keeps you stuck. And right now you are being invited to step out of shame and into responsibility. Not the crushing kind, but the freeing kind that comes with choosing a new path. You don't need to clean yourself up before you turn back. Turning back is what begins the cleansing. Repentance is not about changing everything at once. It's about choosing alignment over resistance. It's about deciding that the way you've been going is no longer acceptable to you, and trusting God enough to guide you differently, even when the next step feels uncertain. There is urgency here because grace is present, not because it's disappearing. Grace is active right now. But grace responds to movement. It meets you when you turn. It doesn't chase endless delay. This is why timing matters so much. A sincere prayer offered now carries a weight that postponed prayers lose, not because God stops listening, but because hearts harden when they wait too long. You might be surprised how quickly things can begin to shift once repentance becomes real. Peace doesn't arrive all at once, but it begins immediately. Clarity doesn't overwhelm you, but confusion starts to loosen its grip. Restoration doesn't erase consequences, but it redeems them. God wastes nothing, not even your worst decisions, when you finally place them in His hands. This is not about fear of punishment. It's about preservation of purpose. There is still something ahead of you worth protecting, still a future that requires a decision today. Repentance is the bridge between warning and renewal. It's the reason this message doesn't end in despair. It's the reason hope is still justified. You don't need the right words. You don't need a dramatic moment. You don't need to feel strong. You just need to be willing. Willing to stop justifying what you know is wrong. Willing to release control. Willing to say yes where you've been saying later. Heaven responds to that willingness immediately. Right now, you are closer to change than you think, not because everything is fixed, but because everything is exposed, and exposed things can be healed. This moment is fragile, though. Moments like this don't last forever. They either become turning points or missed chances. What makes the difference is not emotion, it's action. And now everything comes down to what happens after these words fade. Not what you felt were "I'll listening." Not the emotion that rose for a moment, but the choice you make when you are alone again, when the noise returns, when life tries to pull you back into routine. This is where destiny quietly shifts, not in dramatic scenes, but in small decisions made right after truth is revealed. You have been given clarity, and clarity is never neutral. It always demands a response. You can't unknow what you know now. You can't unfeel what stirred in you. From this point forward, standing still is also a decision. Ignoring is also a choice. And every choice moves you in a direction, whether you acknowledge it or not. It's easy to tell yourself you'll think about this later. Easy to promise yourself you'll come back to it when things calm down. But understand this, life will not pause to protect this moment. Distractions will return. Doubt will speak up. Comfort will try to reclaim you. And if you're not intentional, this moment will quietly slip into the same place as all the others you meant to respond to, but didn't. God is watching what you do next, not to judge you, but to see if you're ready to move. He already knows your weakness. He already knows your past. What He's waiting to see is whether awareness becomes action. Because revelation without response changes nothing. Your future is not decided by what you intended to do. It's shaped by what you actually do. One step of obedience outweighs 1,000 good intentions. One honest decision can redirect years of drift. Hesitation stretches moments like this until they lose their power. That's why urgency matters now. Not because God is rushing you, but because delay weakens resolve.
You may be tempted to downplay this moment once it passes, to tell yourself it wasn't that serious,
That it was just emotional language. But your heart knows better. That stillness you feel right now, that focused awareness, that's not something you can manufacture. That's the space where change is possible, and it won't stay open forever. You don't need to do everything today. You don't need to have it all figured out. But you do need to do something. One honest prayer, one firm decision, one clear step away from what's been pulling you down, one act of obedience that says, "I'm done delaying." Heaven honors movement even when it's small. There are two paths opening in front of you, even if they look almost identical at first. One leads back to familiarity, comfortable, predictable, unchanged. The other leads forward, uncertain, uncomfortable, but alive with purpose. Both are available, but only one leads to growth. Only one leads to peace that lasts. Only one aligns with the warning, the mercy, and the opportunity you've just been given. This message does not follow you forever. It hands you responsibility and then steps aside. What remains is your choice. Will this be the moment you remember as the point where everything began to shift? Or will it become another message you heard and respected, but never acted on? The future you step into is being decided quietly right now.